Good evening, everyone. So we are live right now. Good evening, everyone. So we are live right now. So let us start the class. I hope my voice and video is clear. Fine. So let us continue with the class. In the previous lecture, we discussed about very important topic, that is procedure established by law and what do you mean by due process of law. And in fact, in the last we discussed principle of natural justice. So we discussed three items in the last lecture, that is procedure established by law first, second is the due process of law, third is the principle of natural justice. In the coming lectures, we are also going to discuss in detail regarding the principle of natural justice. Fine. Now, as we are discussing this fundamental right, so we already discussed two sets of fundamental rights. Now, what are these two sets of fundamental right? Let me show you the chart, or this is the chart. This is the chart. So we already discussed two set of fundamental right. What is the first set? The first set is nothing but right to equality. So what comes under right to equality? Article 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. First set is completed. Then we discuss the second set of freedom of fundamental rights, that is right of freedom, right to freedom. So we discuss Article 19, subclause 1, subclause A, subclause B, subclause C, D, E, F, G. In fact, this was omitted, right to property. So it became a constitutional right under which article? Under Article 300A. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss the very important one, the another set of fundamental right, that is a right against exploitation. So we are going to discuss Article 23 and Article 24. So we discussed this article, right to protection, already in the previous lecture, that is right to life, Article 21. So remember, what is Article 21? No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. So we discussed this very important one. Now in today's lecture, we are going to talk about Article 23 in detail and Article 24 in detail. Fine. So let us start with rights against exploitation. So in this fundamental right against exploitation, we are going to talk about two articles, that is Article 23 and Article 24. So we are going to discuss this article in a detailed manner. Now let us start with first Article 23. So what is Article 23? So let me first write for you Article 23. So this article 23 talks about prohibition of traffic in human beings, talk about prohibition of traffic in human being and forced labor. Agree, my dear friend? So article 23 is basically talking about prohibition, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. So this is the agenda of our today class. Agree? Now when I read this article 23 for you, so this article 23 says three things. Now what are these three things? It says the first thing is traffic. The first thing is traffic. The second thing it says about begar system. And third, it tells about the other forms of forced labor. So in article 23 we are going to discuss about these three aspects. The first one is traffic in human beings, the second one is begar system, and the third one and the very very important one is other form of forced labor. Is currently practices is in India or not? We will look at some of the important examples that are very very relevant for our examination, and in fact we will discuss some of the Supreme Court cases judgment. Fine, so let's get started. Let me first tell you what is the meaning of this traffic in human beings. What is the meaning of this traffic in human being? Now suppose you are a individual person and you are buying or selling. You are buying or selling men's, women's and children's, just like goods or commodities. So this is the meaning of traffic in human beings. Suppose you are an individual and you are buying as well as selling of man's, women's and children, just like goods and articles. For example, you are going in market to purchase some vegetables, or you are going in market to purchase some articles. In a same manner you are also buying or selling this man, woman and children. So this is the meaning of trafficking. Now according to article 23 of Indian Constitution, this trafficking is banned in India or prohibited in India. So according to which fundamental right? That is your article 23. So according to article 23, trafficking in human beings is prohibited. So this trafficking in human being is prohibited. Agree? I hope this is very much clear to you. So this is the meaning of trafficking. Now first part is clear. So I hope this traffic in human beings is very much clear to you. Now let us come to a very very important one, that is slavery. I hope there is no person in this world who do not know about this word slavery. And you know very well this slavery was practiced a long year back. If you see the world history, this slavery was practiced from many years. So but what is the main problem with our Indian Constitution? When you read article 23, so in article 23 this is not explicitly mentioned, or I can say that it is not, this word is not clearly mentioned. not clearly mentioned in Constitution of India. In fact, when you read Article 23, there is a no slavery word. But there are various Supreme Court judgments. So in Supreme Court judgment says that this slavery is also this also be considered as a part of, or I can say that a form of traffic in human beings. Traffic in human beings. Agree? So first part is clear what you mean by traffic in human beings. The second part is nothing but slavery. Suppose in your UPSC examination or in your state civil service examination, they will give a question like this. They give you the question, is slavery is prohibited? Yes. The answer is yes. But where you will find, you will not find. But according to the Supreme Court judgment, yes, it is prohibited under which article? Article 23. So Article 23 also talk about the prohibition of slavery also. Prohibition of trafficking in human being also. Fine. So I discussed two things. The first thing is that trafficking in human beings, which is prohibited. The second thing I told you, slavery. Slavery is also prohibited. I think these two terms are very much clear to you. If examiner give you a question regarding slavery or traffic, so remember both are prohibited under which fundamental right? Under Article 23. I hope this is very much clear to you. Fine. So my dear friend, I discussed two things. The first thing is, let me repeat once again, traffic in human beings. The first thing is nothing but traffic in human beings. Fine. The second thing I told you, slavery. The second thing I told you, slavery. Now let me tell you the third very important one. As I told you, slavery is not mentioned in Indian Constitution. This word is not mentioned. Similarly, if you see the illegal trafficking of human organs, can I say illegal trafficking of human organs? So remember my dear friend, if these questions came in your examination, illegal trafficking of human organs, remember my dear friend, it is also prohibited under which article? So they are prohibited under Article 23. So which says that prohibition of trafficking of human beings and the forced labor. Fine. So I hope this is very much clear to you. So I told you traffic in human beings. Second, I told you slavery, and third, I told you illegal trafficking of human organ. In fact, if you ask me, sir, is there any case according to which Supreme Court said yes, slavery is also a part of Article 23? Yes. If you want to write this in your mains paper, I can give you the name of the case. Let me tell you, just give me a second. I will tell you the name of the case. The name of the case is Dubar Gola, Dubar Goala versus Union of India. So you can quote, my dear friend, the name of this case when the question is regarding the slavery. And in fact, if this question comes in essay or essay comes on this slavery, you can quote this word. Or in ethics also. That's why this polity is very important topic according to your essay paper also, according to your ethics paper also. Fine. So Supreme Court in this Dubar Gola versus Union of India case said that slavery can also be considered as synonym or as a part of trafficking in human beings. Can be considered as a trafficking in human beings. Fine, my dear friend. So I told you three things in this article. Let me repeat once again for you. The first one is trafficking in human beings. I think this is very much clear to you. Second thing, I told you about slavery, and third thing, I told you about this illegal trafficking of human organs. I think so this is very much clear to you. Now let me tell you the next one, that is the big R system. Let me tell you the fourth one is big R system. What do you mean by begar? In a simple way, I can say that the meaning of begar is nothing but forced labor plus no wages. So can I say, let me discuss this fourth begar system in detail. So let me tell you what do you mean by this begar. Fourth one, begar system. So in a simple way, I can say that this begar system is nothing but it is combination of both forced labor plus no wages, or you can say that in a simple way you can say that the bonded labor. Let me discuss this begar system. It may be possible separately they can ask a question regarding this begar system. So let me discuss this with the help of an example. Let me tell you one story. The story starts with my grandfather. Now, in family emergency, my grandfather needs some money. So he took 20,000 rupees at that time, 20,000 rupees from money lenders. Who are the jamidar that time, because the money was only available to the jamidar peoples that time. So my grandfather took 20,000 rupees from these money lenders. Now they told, if you want to pay this 20,000 rupees, you have to pay, plus you have to pay some interest also. But the interest rate was very high. My grandfather whole life spent, he was unable to pay the loan of this 20,000 rupees or the loan of this money lenders. So what happens? These money lenders told to my grandfather that my grandfather has to work in his farmhouses or in the agriculture lands. So what happens? The interest rate was very, very high, that during the whole life of my grandfather, he was unable to pay the interest of this 20,000 rupees. Now what happens? When my grandfather died, so the debt got transferred to my father. So my father whole life is also paying the interest of this money lender people. So my father also work in the farm or agriculture land of this money lenders. Now the son of this money lender came into picture. Now after my father age is over, so I came into picture. Now at this stage, I am also unable to pay the interest of this amount. Can I say I am working in their field, my grandfather working in their field, my father working in their field, worked in their field, I also working in their field. But what happens? They are not giving me wages. So they are not giving wages. So no wages are given to us. In fact, my father got no wages. So this system, my dear friend, I can say that. So this system, I can say that okay, just a minute. Now, so can I say the whole life of my grandfather or my father or even my life also spent working as a, can I say, we work as a forced labor. Why we are called by the name of forced labor? Because we are bound to work. And the second thing is that they are not give us any wages. So can I say we are bound to work plus no wages given to us. And in fact, This is not a story of mine. There are millions of people like me who are still paying the interest of that amount to the money lenders. Now what happens? Supreme Court or our Indian government pass one act. They pass one act. Let me tell you the name of that act. The name of the act is Bounded Labor Abolition Act. So government pass Bounded Labor Abolition Act, that is 1976. And you can remember this came during the emergency. If you remember, I told you so many times that I told you so many times that emergency was imposed from 25th June 1975 to 21st March 1977. Fine. So this act, which is Bounded Labor Abolition Act, as you can remember very easily, bounded labor. So this law is regarding the bounded labor. So we want to abolish this bounded labor. So it is an act. So it came in 1976. Now when this act came into picture, millions of the bounded laborers, free from the hands of these money lenders. So this is known as, my dear friend, the big R system. Fine. So now Supreme Court said that this big R system or this forced labor, is prohibited under Article 23 of Constitution of India. Agree? So this is our Article 23. So I told you Article 23 basically tells about prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Now let me repeat once again for you. Remember, this is very, very important one. So this article is, my dear friend, Article 23. So it tells about prohibition of traffic in human beings. It talks about the prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor Agree? So in this article, I already told you what is the meaning of traffic. What is the meaning of traffic or trafficking in human beings? Second, I told you slavery. Third, I told you illegal trafficking of human organs, and I also told you about the big R system. So big R system is nothing but, remember, it is basically combination of both. That is the forced labor plus no wages. So all these four terms means trafficking, slavery, illegal, or this big R system, they are prohibited under Article 23 of Constitution of India. Under Article 23 of Constitution of India. So UPSC or your state public service commission might make a question regarding the trafficking in human beings, slavery, regarding the illegal trafficking of human organs. So remember, these are prohibited under Article 23 of Constitution of India. Fine. So any form of trafficking is prohibited. In fact, the forced labor is very, very important one. Forced labor plus no wages. So this is known as a big R system. So I hope this is very much clear to you. So if you want to copy this, you can copy this. Big R system. The meaning of big R system is nothing but it is the forced labor. It is the forced labor plus no wages. Forced labor plus no wages. Now let me discuss the other part of this article also, because this article is very important one. And remember this law also, that is the the name of the law is Bounded Labor Abolition Act 1976. Bounded Labor Abolition Act 1976. So this question may be asked that this act is related to which article? So answer goes to Article 23. Answer goes to Article 23. Fine. So you can note down these important points. Down this name of this act, or you just add in your Lakshmikant also, if it is not given in Lakshmikant, so you can add this act, although it is given in Lakshmikant, Bounded Labor Abolition Act 1976. Fine. Now, so we discussed trafficking, we discussed slavery, illegal trafficking of human beings, and the Bega system. Now let me give you another example of other forms of forced labor. Other forms of forced labor, because in the starting I told you Article 23 is tell about three parts. The first part is traffic, second part is begar we discussed, and third part is the other form of forced labor. So I already told you what is the meaning of forced labor, but now in this I am going to tell you what is the meaning of other form of forced labor. The story starts with the year 1982. 1982. What happens in 1982? Asian Games were to be held in New Delhi. In New Delhi, that is capital of our India. So what happens? The people, so the worker from different location or different parts of the country, they brought to the New Delhi, or especially in this Asian Village Games. So that area is known as the Asian Village Games, and the peoples are brought to work to make some stadiums or the other articles in the Asian Games stadiums or Asian Game villages. Now what happens? There was one NGO. And what was the name of NGO? The name of the NGO is People's Union for Democratic Rights. People's Union for a Democratic Right. So this was the name of NGO. What was the name of the NGO? People Union for Democratic Right. So this NGO filed a case in Supreme Court. So case become People's Union for Democratic Rights versus Union of India, and the year is, my dear friend, 1982. 1982. Now they file a petition in Supreme Court and tell that these authorities are taking the works from the peoples who are brought from the different part of the country, and they are work as a forced labor. So all the peoples who are working there, so these workers are working as a forced labor. Supreme Court asked two fundamental rights from this NGO. Why? Because this NGO was the petitioner. First question is, forced labor is practices here or not? Means they are bound to work. The first fundamental question is they are bound to work or they are forced to work. So this NGO, what is the name of NGO? People Union for Democratic Rights. So this NGO told, no my lord, they are voluntary giving their services. So can I say they are not bound to work or not forced to work, because the people who are coming from the all across the country to work in the Asian game village, they comes voluntary. So this cannot be called as a bounded labor, or this cannot be called as the forced labor. Second fundamental question asked by the Supreme Court is these peoples are not getting any wages. So they said, sir, they are getting wages. So they told, is they are not getting wages? No, they are getting wages. So Supreme Court said they are getting wages also and they are voluntary working also. So how you file the petition in Supreme Court saying that forced labor is going on, the forced labor is practicing. So this NGO, People Union for Democratic Right, this NGO told to the Supreme Court, sir, it is okay, they are giving their voluntary services, but what is the main problem? The authorities are taking the work for a very long duration of hours. For example, someday they have to work for the 18 hours, they have to work for the 20 hours. So, and the other thing is that hygiene is not maintained. Hygiene is not maintained. This is the first argument that is given by this NGO. Second argument given by this NGO is that, sir, the wages given by the authority is very, very less. The wages given by the authority is very, very less, and it is unable to sustain for himself also and the family members also. So Supreme Court said, okay, fine, we will consider your case and we will call this case as not a forced labor. We will call this case as a other form of forced labor. Other form of forced labor. So now in this case, Supreme Court said regarding the minimum wages, and you have to also maintain the hygiene for the workers. So fine, minimum wages is to be given to the workers, and second is hygiene to be maintained. Hygiene is to be maintained. Fine. Now why I am teaching you all these things? Because these questions are already asked in the various examinations, and this question might again ask in your state public service commission, and they can ask minimum wages or hygiene is to be maintained comes under which article? So can I say they are coming under Article 23, because the judgment is given under Article 23. Prohibition of, what is this? This is the prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. So this is, my dear friend, what is this? This story, 18-hour work, 20-hour work, no minimum wages is given to the workers. So this comes under the other form of forced labor. So right now, if you are working in any company, you are working as a labor, so minimum wages will be provided to you, and hygiene conditions will be given to you. You will not allowed to work in a unhygiene condition. It is your fundamental right. So if someone is giving you opportunity to work in unhygiene conditions, you can deny that, because that's your fundamental right. And which fundamental rights, my dear friend? 23, Article 23, prohibition of trafficking in human beings and forced labor. Fine. So I think the whole story is very much clear to you. This whole story is very much clear to you. In a short, let me revise this article once again. So we discussed this article, Article 23. So Article 23 talks about prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. So in this I told you what is the meaning of traffic, what is the meaning of slavery, In fact, I give you the name of one case. Third thing I told you, illegal trafficking of human organs. After that, I told you about the Begar system. Begar system. So Begar system is basically of two types. I can say that the first type, you can say forced labor. I give you the example of my grandfather. And second is no wages. No wages. And finally, my dear friend, I told you the very important one, other form of forced labor, in which Supreme Court said the minimum wages is to be given to the workers and the conditions must be hygiene. Hygiene condition must be maintained. So this is given in the judgment of Supreme Court. Suppose tomorrow the question comes regarding the minimum wages, or the question comes regarding the you have to maintain the hygiene, so you can tell about the fundamental right. Although these hygiene conditions are also given in DPSP also. When we discuss the DPSP, we are going to discuss this thing in detail, but later. But that is not justiciable, these are justiciable. You can approach to the court. Fine. So I will tell you finally what is the main difference between the fundamental rights and the DPSP. Fundamental rights are the guaranteed rights, they are the not guaranteed rights. They are the justiciable, they are not justiciable. Fine. So these DPSP are what? They are the directions given to the state by the Constitution of India for the welfare of citizen of India. Fine. So we'll discuss this DPSP later, but I hope this is very much clear to you. But as I told you many times, this Article 23 is not a absolute fundamental right. Why this is not a absolute fundamental right? Because this is also consists of exceptions. Yes, exceptions are there. Now what is the first exception? For example, rigorous imprisonment. You have seen, suppose there is a one person X and this person X did murder and he was sentenced, jail sentenced, he was in a jail, but the imprisonment is a rigorous imprisonment. So what happens during this rigorous imprisonment? This person X has to work in a jail, For example, Sanjay Dutt. When Sanjay Dutt was arrested, Sanjay Dutt is a very famous Bollywood actor. When he was arrested, he also worked in jail. That is allowed, but that is an exceptions. So that cannot be come under the Minimum Wages Act, or that cannot be comes under this forced labor. That cannot be comes, because these are the exceptions. So sometime what happens, some prisoners got rigorous imprisonment. So what happens in this rigorous imprisonment? This you have to work in a jail. So this is, my dear friend, first exception. Now there is another exception number 2. What is this exception? The name of the exception is conspiration system. The second is conspiration system. Now what do you mean by this conspiration system? I can say that this is nothing but compulsory military service. If you go to the Israel, if you go to the Iran, you have to work in army for a particular fixed duration. But this is not happen in India. In India, there is no conspiration system, but it may be possible. Suppose there is a war going against one country. So government of India can say that the peoples who are at a age of, I'm just taking example, the people who are, or the youth who are at a age of 18 to 25, they have to give the compulsory military services. So that cannot be comes under this Article 23. This is the second exception. Fine. So this is the second exception of this your Article 23. In fact, there is a one Devdasi system. So I'm not going to discuss this because in history you have discussed about this Devdasi system. Devdasi system. I hope you remember this. It is a very controversial, sometimes it becomes very controversial. So I hope everybody, or after this class you can read about this Devadasi system. But this Devadasi system is also abolished under Article 23. So these practices are not done. So this is another exception. So in a simple way, I can say that the Article 23 is basically talk about the prohibition of trafficking in human beings and the forced labor. Fine. So we discuss about what do you mean by traffic, what do you mean by slavery, what do you mean by the forced labor or Begar system, and the other form of the forced labor. The fourth thing I told you in this, and I also told you, remember this Article 23 is not a absolute fundamental right, because it has exceptions. Can you tell me which fundamental right do not have exceptions? Article 17, abolition of untouchability, because it was very close to the heart of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I told you the story in Article 17. Fine. So I hope this is Article 23 is very much clear to you. Article 23. Fine. Now if this Article 23 is clear, so I can say that this is exploitation in a general sense. This is a exploitation in a general sense. But now let us discuss about Article 24. Article 24 is also talking about the protection or prohibition of exploitation, but this is basically regarding the, or basically for the children's. Means prohibition of working of children in hazardous or non-hazardous companies or institutions. We are going to discuss prohibition of exploitation of children. I can say that this article is nothing but prohibition of exploitation of children. Fine. My first question is that if I ask you, what is the definition of children according to you? So currently, right now, what is the definition of a child less than a age of 14 years? Less than at a age of 14 years. Now when Constitution was made, so it was mentioned in the Constitution that these children cannot work in a hazardous companies or factories. They cannot work, but they can work in a non-hazardous. They can work in non-hazardous companies. But now what happens? There was a act. Let me tell you what was the name of the act. Child labor prohibition. The name was child labor prohibition and regulation act. So this act was passed, but remember this act was passed in 1986. This act was passed in 1986, and in short form it is known as CLPR. In short form it is known as CLPR. And my dear friend, you can remember easily because this is regarding the child labor. This act is regarding the child labor. So in this act we have to discuss the two things. The first thing is the prohibition and second is the regulation. Now what is the prohibition? Prohibition previously it is that they cannot work in the hazardous factories, but they can work in the non-hazardous. But you know what happens? Something happens in 2009. Right to education came into picture, and you know this was enforced. It came in 2009, but it was enforced on 1st April 2010. So we have to also consider this right to education, because in fact in your article 21A, which was brought by a constitutional amendment act, if we combine all these things, so we can say that it's the duty that to provide a free and compulsory education to a children of age 6 to 14 year. What is the age, my dear friend? 6 to 14 year of age. Now we have to prohibit also, we have to regulate also. The previously we told they cannot work in the hazardous company. Now it was amended, and the last time it was amended in this CLPR, means Child Labor Prohibition Regulation Act. Last time it was amended in 2016. Now what was in this amendment? In this amendment it is mentioned that children cannot work in any company except two. The first one is they can work in their own company or factory or own family business. The children can work in their own family business, and second, they can work in media also. For example, film industry also, audio, video, visual company. But condition is that first they have to go to the school. And after coming from the school, during the free hours, they can work in the own family business or they can work in the media. For example, you have seen so many child artists are there in the Bollywood movie or in the Hollywood movie. So I'm talking about the Indian children's. Fine. So they can work in any Bollywood movie, they can work in any radio station, but after the school, because what is our fundamental right? Compulsory education for a children of 6 to 14 year of age. So two conditions are there. If you have a family business, so after coming from the school, children can work in his company or in his factory or his father's shop, they can work. So two conditions are there: own family business and this media. Now suppose what happens in some company in Seva Kasi, where you will find the making of a crackers, the small hands are needed to just fill that cracker. So if someone is employed, the children who are below the age of 14 years, so what will happen? There will be a case against that people. And what is written in that act? There will be a minimum jail of, you have to go to a jail minimum 6 months and maximum is 2 years. In fact, there is a penalty also. You have to pay some amount, or you have to you will be fined as well as the imprisonment also. So it is mentioned in which act? The name of the act is nothing but Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, which was last time amended in 2016. So this act is very, very important. Fine. So I will send you the link in your WhatsApp. You can read. I will send you the list of all constitutional amendment. So you can read that amendment and you can see what is the punishment given for the peoples who are employed, these children who are below the age of 14 years, and there are so many things are given in this amendment. You can read after this class. I will share you the link, do not worry. I will share you the link. Fine. So this is, my dear friend, Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. So which article is talking about? Which article is talking about prohibition of exploitation of children's? Article 24. So both article, we discuss both article. What is this article? We discuss article 23 as well as 24. So both articles is talking about prohibition of exploitation. Prohibition of exploitation. But 23 is basically, in a simple way, I can say that this is in a general sense. This is in a general sense, but this article 24 is basically for the children's. In this, Supreme Court judgment and act are important, and in this, my dear friend, this act, Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act, very, very important. Please read this. This is child labor. Let me write one again. Child labor Prohibition and Regulation Act, that is 1986 and 1986, and it was last time amended in 2016. Please read some points of this act. Very, very important. They can ask the question, what are the punishment given in this act? because nowadays UPSC are going in deep. At least if you read all the amendments of fundamental rights, that's all for you. Definitely they ask the question, generally the first area will be the fundamental rights, and I discuss the fundamental rights in a very detailed manner, and I discuss each and every point so that after completion of this online lectures you can follow the official websites of Government of India or Constitution of India, so that you people feel comfortable, and confidence will only come when you solve the MCQ. So how will solve the MCQ? By remembering this. So you have to add in your notes, you have to watch all the videos and the content. What is the content? You have to pick this content. What is the meaning of big R system? What is the other form of forced labor? Is hygiene is maintained or not? Minimum wages comes under which article? Right to life comes under which article? So all these things you have to focus, and I can promise you, if you study like this, you are going to attempt the maximum questions. That's my promise. I can promise you. Fine. So this is, my dear friend, article 24. Fine. Article 24. There is a very famous case. Let me tell you the another famous case. That is the MC Mehta versus State of Tamil Nadu. Another case is MC Mehta versus State of Tamil Nadu. State of Tamil Nadu, and the year is, my dear friend, 1996. This is a very famous case. MC Mehta versus State of Tamil Nadu, 1996. What happened? Before that case, what happens? Children are working in Seva Kasi, means they are working in firecracker industry. They are working in firecracker industry. After the petition filed by Mr. MC Mehta, the case become MC Mehta versus State of Tamil Nadu, year is 1996. The children are banned work in firecracker industry. So this is also given in Lakshmikant, and this case is very famous one. In fact, you will able to know about so many PIL filed by a MC Mehta. He was a great patriot. He filed so many petitions, especially regarding the environment. MC Mehta was very famous. Fine. So remember this case regarding the firecracker. The children are not allowed to work in the firecracker or Seva Kasi industry. Fine. So this is all about today lecture. So in this lecture we discuss two very important one, that is article right against. So we discuss right or prohibition of exploitation. So we discuss article 23 and we discuss article 24. Now in the next class I am going to discuss article 25, 26, 27 and 28, which is going to be happen on Monday most probably, and on Tuesday I am going to cover article 29 and 30. So in the coming week fundamental rights are going to be over. Once fundamental right is going to be over, I will ask you doubt from your side. I will give you some time to you, so that you people can ask me question. You can send me on WhatsApp, sir, please tell me the answer of this question. I have a doubt in this question. According to your lecture, I think that this is the answer. So you can discuss that one, and after that I will give you so many MCQs, so that this topic fundamental right will be completely over. Fine, from my side. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this lecture also and the previous lecture also. Thank you so much. Good night.